There is a particular kind of film that announces its intentions quietly and then earns something larger than those intentions by the time it ends, not through surprise or spectacle, but through the steady accumulation of one honest moment placed carefully after another. Ordinary Angels is that kind of film, and the reason it works is not the story it tells, which is already known to be true, but the woman at the center of it. A woman so imperfect and so determined and so genuinely alive on screen that she makes the familiar feel like something you are experiencing for the first time. If you have ever dismissed an inspirational drama because you could see where it was going, Ordinary Angels is the film that asks you to reconsider whether the destination matters as much as you thought it did, and Sharon Stevens is the reason that question lands with any force at all. Ordinary Angels is an American drama released in February 2024 based on events that actually took place in Louisville, Kentucky in 1994. The film follows Sharon Stevens, a hairdresser whose personal life is visibly and honestly in disarray, who learns about the situation facing Ed Schmidt, a widowed father trying to raise enough money for a liver transplant that his young daughter desperately needs. Sharon decides to involve herself in a way that quickly grows beyond anything she initially planned, eventually drawing an entire community into a story that began as one family's private crisis and became something that required many ordinary people doing extraordinary things in order to reach its outcome. Rotten Tomatoes records an audience approval rating of 99% from over 1,000 verified ratings, and the critical consensus on the platform specifically identifies Hilary Swank's performance as the element that anchors the film's emotional credibility and prevents it from collapsing into the kind of sentimentality that films of this type are always at risk of producing. Hilary Swank is not a new face or an emerging talent being tested in a leading role for the first time. She is a two-time Academy Award winner for Best Actress, recognized first at the 72nd Oscar ceremony in 2000 for her performance in Boys Don't Cry, and again at the 77th ceremony in 2005 for $1 Million Baby, directed by Clint Eastwood. Those two awards, separated by 5 years and covering roles that share almost no surface characteristics beyond the intensity they demand from the person playing them, represent a level of sustained achievement that places Swank in a category occupied by very few performers working in American cinema. Her public image is one of discipline, dramatic weight, and an appetite for roles that require genuine sacrifice rather than surface glamour. What makes her casting in Ordinary Angels interesting is the specific way in which Sharon Stevens contrasts with that image. Because Sharon is not a figure of strength or controlled intensity, but of chaos, barely held together by conviction, and watching Swank dismantle her own established presence to inhabit that particular kind of person is one of the more quietly remarkable things the film has to offer. Sharon enters the story not from a position of stability or moral authority, but from a place of her own genuine struggle. She is described in the film's materials as fierce but struggling, which is a pairing that matters because it refuses to separate the qualities that make her effective from the qualities that make her difficult. Her surface goal is straightforward enough, which is to help Ed Schmidt's family navigate the financial and logistical obstacles standing between his daughter and the surgery she needs. But the film takes care very early to establish that what Sharon is actually searching for is something that the Schmidt family's crisis happens to make possible in a way her ordinary life does not, which is the experience of being genuinely useful, of having her energy directed at something that matters, of discovering whether the version of herself she believes is in there somewhere can actually show up when the situation requires it. She is a woman who has accumulated a private and unspoken conviction that she has not yet done anything that will outlast the afternoon in which it happened, and the opportunity to help this particular family arrives at the precise moment when that conviction has become heaviest. What separates Sharon from the standard template of the inspirational protagonist is the honesty with which the film handles her instability. She does not help Ed's family because she has resolved her own difficulties and found herself in a position of surplus generosity. She helps them while still carrying everything that was wrong with her life before she walked into their story. And the film does not pretend that the act of helping automatically repairs the damage. Her motivation carries within it not just compassion, but something more psychologically specific, a need to be connected, a need to prove something that she has not yet been able to articulate clearly even to herself, and a recognition in Ed's family of a kind of suspended helplessness that mirrors something she knows from the inside. That layering of motivation is what keeps Sharon from feeling like a symbol and keeps her feeling like a person, and it is the quality that Swank's performance is most precisely calibrated to protect. Her weaknesses are structural rather than incidental. Sharon operates in an environment that has already formed its opinion of what she is capable of and is not particularly interested in revising that opinion based on what she believes about herself. When she begins approaching people for help, the resistance she encounters is not simply logistical, but personal, because she is not the kind of person whose causes typically attract support from strangers. She has no institutional credibility, no track record of successful community organizing, and no polished presentation designed to make people comfortable. What she has is a story she is convinced matters and a refusal to accept that her conviction alone is insufficient grounds for others to act. The gap between her certainty and her credibility is the film's most honest source of tension, more interesting than any manufactured obstacle, because it forces the audience to sit with the question of whether Sharon is actually the right person for this before the answer has become obvious. Her internal conflict sits at the intersection of self-preservation and self-expenditure. She wants to help Ed's family in a way that is genuine and not self-serving, but she is also, at the same time, helping herself without fully acknowledging that this is what she is doing. She wants to connect with people in a meaningful way, but does not always know how to be received. And her personality, which has an edge to it that the film does not sand down, sometimes works against the very outcome she is trying to produce. She wants to do the right thing, and she has the emotional intelligence to know what the right thing is in most situations. But she does not always have the patience or the self-regulation to pursue it in ways that make it easy for others to follow her. These contradictions are not resolved by the film so much as they are accommodated by it, and that accommodation is what gives Sharon her particular kind of authenticity. Her arc moves from isolation toward connection, but the movement is not clean or linear. It is the kind of change that happens in real people, which is to say it happens unevenly, with reversals and pauses, and it produces something that looks less like transformation and more like clarification. Sharon at the end of the film is not a different person from Sharon at the beginning. She is the same person who now knows something about herself that she did not know before, something that the experience of helping Ed's family made visible in a way that nothing else had managed to do. The film is disciplined enough to let that be sufficient, and that discipline is one of its more underappreciated qualities. The scenes that carry the most weight in the film are not the scenes of highest drama, but the scenes where Sharon's character is tested in quieter and more specific ways. When she makes the initial decision to involve herself in the Schmidt family situation, the film establishes that she is not responding to a formal request or a clear invitation, but to something internal, a recognition that looking away from this particular situation is not something she is capable of. That choice, made from a place of personal instability rather than settled confidence, sets the terms for everything that follows and makes Sharon's subsequent actions feel earned rather than performed. When she encounters doubt and resistance from the people around her, her response is not to soften or to recalibrate toward what will be accepted, but to push forward in a way that sometimes creates friction, and the film is honest about the cost of that approach without punishing her for it.